Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the second video released this week. I wanted to provide an extra one since I didn't release a video last week. And similar to other videos, this video will be one that is anxiety related and designed to give you some implementable tips you can use to work through anxiety and come out better for doing that work, meaning potentially less anxious doing that activity or willing to try more things and not avoid situations or things because it's too scary or you're worried that anxiety will get up too much. And I think a good way to think about this is it's not necessarily important that you subject yourself to a lot of anxiety right away. With other kind of discussions I've had, it's important to take small steps in where you're going. So the tip this week that I would share with you is something that my support team and healthcare team has helped me deal with and helped me work through. And what that process or method is called is creating an anxiety hierarchy. So to kind of break down what that means, basically take out a piece of paper and at the bottom you would put activities or things that cause you anxiety, but not something that's going to get you really anxious and stressed out. And then each item on the way up, you can think about this maybe as, a pyramid, where the top of the pyramid is the most anxiety provoking thing and the thing that would be the hardest to do. And what you do is just think about activities in your daily life that you might avoid or not do and put those on the hierarchy and write down what those things are and write down what a goal is that you have for whatever week or whatever time frame it is. And I would say it's not necessary to really think too hard about the activities that you do and if you're doing something right. The easiest way to know if something is worth it to include in the hierarchy that you draw on your piece of paper or other tool or note or something is to really just think about what are some things you don't want to do. And that maybe is somewhat simplistic and not encompassing the whole situation, but generally anxiety is one of those things that makes you not want to do things or not speak up or not be willing to show your authentic self. So to kind of give you an example of this, I'll talk about my experience, and I hope that it helps you understand how I did this and how I was able to get help and progress in this area. And a good way to share more about this or more details that may help in your development of figuring out what's important to include in the hierarchy for these different activities is just maybe not necessarily quick discussion, but discussion that I think will clearly kind of highlight how to do this. And really to simply say what this is, for a long time, I really had a serious fear of driving. This could be, driving around in town, driving anywhere far. Um, just driving in general is still something that scares me and that I don't always do very good with. And I've gotten better because I've identified that driving was something that I avoided and that I didn't want to do. And, that because I had avoided it, I maybe didn't do certain things in life sometimes or missed out on something. And so kind of what I would talk more about with the driving thing is like I just really was nervous about driving, and frankly still am pretty nervous about that. I mean, it's one of the most dangerous things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And I'm not saying, that it's not a good thing to have some fear, because it is important. I think you need to have some level of like, yeah, this is a serious task that I'm doing right now. And that situation that you're in, it helps you focus. And I would also say about this too, if for folks that are afraid to drive and afraid to get in the car and go places, like I really empathize because it's a hard thing. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of like other skills. It's one of those things that the more you do the activity of driving, the better you become at it. And if you avoid driving because you're scared or you have anxiety around that, you don't get the experience driving. So it's like it's a negative kind of feedback loop. And a really helpful thing that my healthcare support team helped me with is making an anxiety hierarchy around driving. And to do this, what we did is we talked about what I would avoid, whether it's in, an appointment, or, we talked about the situations driving around in my town where I didn't do certain things, like, or didn't go drive on a certain street, or didn't go to certain lights or something, or worried that I would do something wrong. And we talked about these things, and to really simply say what we did, I wrote down a goal that I wanted to, for example, drive on the interstate for, a specified distance and stop in a town not too far from where I live, and then come back and turn around. And so we did that as one exposure example. Part of the reason they call the exposures, you're choosing to go through anxiety provoking event, and exposure is just kind of the terminology they use to talk about as you experience an event, you expose yourself to it rather than avoiding it. And the exposure helps you get conditioned to situations of a similar type. So in driving, doing it more is a helpful thing to expose you to more situations and more things that may cause fear, or even, it does put you at, anytime you get in the car, you're put at risk. So I guess what I want to keep mentioning about the exposures, you don't do the hardest thing for you first. it's important to take it slow. And so, for example, if you had a fear of driving across the state, or driving across multiple states or something, that wouldn't be what you'd want to do first. Likely what would happen is it would be overwhelming to you, and it's just not really an effective way to think about anxiety exposure. Certainly people can do that, and it's not like people don't succeed. I wouldn't recommend doing that um, like that, really, because I don't think it helps illustrate this process to you. And with any task or project or thing, if you jump to get way farther ahead, a lot of times that doesn't work. So with these things, you've got to work on them slowly and a lot, and consistently, and spend a lot of time on it. And so with the driving thing, it's better to identify smaller exposure windows, like maybe driving around when it's busy in your own community more, and going on different routes than you normally take to get to work, or go to the store. And also, what I would say about exposure work around driving in more specific details, part of exposure work that I think is really critical is doing exposures that aren't planned out. So what that means is that as you're driving, it's important to not always like think back to your hierarchy and say, well, I planned this and I'm going to go do this right now. It's important to throw a wrinkle into things and just be like, I don't, as you're driving, you can identify things maybe you don't want to do. And that's what happened in my situation, is there were things I didn't want to do, and places that I may not go to, or similar situations. So I would recommend that something would help you would be to, as you're out and about doing your daily activities or chores, or going to appointments or things, try driving different routes and going places where you don't normally go. And there's a lot of good reasons why this can be a good thing. I mean, just taking a new route somewhere can make you more aware, and give you some different stimuli to focus on. At least in my experience, if you really go the same routes a lot, you can sort of get into a mode where things kind of become automatic, and you sort of do things quicker than you might, just because of the kind of body memory that you have, and muscle memory and stuff from doing a certain thing a certain way. And sometimes that can not be a good thing. And I would guess that this varies for different people, and certainly doesn't impact people in the same ways, but I think that that's kind of a good lesson in the discussion here, is like, change things up from the norm if you can. In a lot of ways, the simple notion of getting out of your comfort zone more is a great way to apply, this exposure work. And getting out of your comfort zone could be with anything. It doesn't have to be driving. It could be a social thing, or doing something to reach out to a friend more, or anything that you can come up with fairly on the fly at times. So I think definitely probably getting to be one of my longer videos. So the other thing I would say about this is it's not probably advisable to really be it's important to if you're able to talk to these things with a therapist or somebody trained to help you work through these things, because at least in my case, if I didn't have those uh, the different guidance and the skills that they have to deliver these methods to you, to tell you how to implement these things and not kind of make mistakes or find ways to get around things, then I think the important thing is it's good to have a supporting person in the battle with you that can talk with you through these things, because this exposure work is not always very fun. It's pretty hard, and it can get really scary. And so, I mean, if you're not able to see or meet with a therapist, have your family help you with this, because you can't do that alone. And another party being there with you will really help to keep you motivated to work on your anxiety and push through it and deal with it. And my really succinct summary of these different things is anxiety is one of those annoying things that it doesn't go away. It does kind of ebb and increase and decrease, and that's all kind of fine. I think what a good way to summarize this discussion is like sort of taking a different approach to life, and that's sort of being like just accepting that at any time things may go very wrong, and basically accepting that there's going to be bad stuff going on, and a lot of times you can't do anything about that. And so it's all about pushing through a risk and being aware of the risks, and but also not being debilitated by thinking that the risk will happen, because it a lot of times you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the risk is, or you don't have a way to tell that. With a lot of anxiety stuff, anxiety stems around a search for certainty and an intolerance for uncertainty. So with any exposure thing you're doing, if you can create uncertainty in your life and create uncertainty around what you're doing and how you feel about that and what others might feel about that, you're doing a good thing. So we're about at 20 minutes here, so a good time to end for now. And definitely reach out if you have any questions or comments, and I would just say thanks for watching the video, and I hope that it helps you implement some anxiety relieving strategies and helps you push through them. With that, have a good week, and I'll talk with you in the next video. Thank you.